very fundamental to everything we are going to build the workplace of the future. But the most important one was actually, what is the relationship you have with your employer? And do you want this relationship to be transactional, or do you want this relationship to be experiential? I think that if we behave in a way that is transactional, we are going to create employees who are going to treat us as employer transactionally. So the more you treat me as a robot, the more you treat me for my very limited skills in a very limited job description that is not allowing me to see the end-to-end process, the more I'm going to give you the minimum requirement, because I'm not feeling valued. I'm not feeling respected. I don't see the big picture. You are treating me like a robot. And the ones who are going to have great workplace are going to create experiential relationship. So experiential relationship means you are thinking at least in the midterm. You are not short-term minded. So the more connection you create with them, the more you engage them, the more you are going to create this connection that is really, really meaningful for them. And that is going to stay with them even after they have left your organization. I think it's more like this fundamental relationship that we need to think about very deeply in order for us to have the best workplace of the future.
Welcome to the HR Impact Show, where we have honest conversations with global people leaders about their journey in building great workplaces. I'm Dorothy Yu, your host, CEO and co-founder of Engage Rocket. Engage Rocket is a technology and advisory company that leverages on data to improve employee experience from hire to retire. Today, we're joined by Vanessa Iloste. She has nearly 3 decades of experience within HR across Asia's retail and luxury sector. She's lived in Asia for 27 years now, having been in Japan, China, Hong Kong, and now Singapore. Vanessa has spent 23 years in LVMH Group and is currently the VP of HR within Sephora. She brings a wealth of experience navigating complexity in multicultural backgrounds, and we're very excited to dive into her experience today. Welcome to the show, Vanessa. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. You've had a remarkable, almost 3-decade career in HR, would you say, in the retail and luxury sector. Could you walk us through some of your career highlights and what are some of the most memorable experiences in this last 3 decades?
Wow, that's very nice of you. Thank you so much, Dorothy, for welcoming me, and thank you for taking the time. So I think the first thing to say is I was very lucky to find my way and my path quite early on. So I discovered human resources when I was 24 years old. And it was after 2 years in IT. So, I mean, if you want to know, I was one of the worst IT person on the planet. I do not recommend to hire me for that job. But when I found my path, I actually blossomed and I really enjoyed actually this field. And I still enjoy every day. And every day for me is a learning opportunity like today to get to know you, to get to know your team and to spend some time with you. So I would say that I was very lucky because I've been hired by the LVMH Group 23 years ago in Hong Kong, which is very dear to your heart, in the Hong Kong city. And I moved from Japan to China for that role. I was originally in a role that was more corporate for 7 years, but I had something in me. I really wanted to become a full-fledged, what we call an HR generalist in our jargon. So instead of having a specialization, I was actually providing the business with support. So I became an HR director at the age of 29. That was a big moment for me because I had told myself, you have this kind of stupid gamble with yourself. And I said to myself, I really want to be an HR director before the age of 30. And I was very lucky that it happened when I was 29. And after that, I started my journey as an HR generalist. And this is really what makes me very happy every day, because these roles are extraordinary. Whether you are an HR business partner for 50, 100 people, or you are an HR head or CHRO, which I'm not today, but a person with 53,000 employees like my boss, you are actually close to the business. And this is the part that I love. So understanding the business, understanding the operating model of what I'm working on and getting to know it is a great experience. So every time I started a new project, I actually got this kind of kick in my belly about learning about the new operating model. And then I was very lucky to work with extraordinary leaders. So usually we are the extension of the leader as HR head or HR generalist. So you need to really understand the psyche, the leadership style, and the vision of your leader, and you need to challenge that leader as well. You're not only of course just doing what he or she wants you to do. You have your own point of view, your own perspective, but ultimately once you have debated, you are going to align with that person, and you are going to be only one. So 1 + 1 = 3, and you are going to be the same voice for the organization, for the team, and for the leader. So this moment is a moment that I found also very interesting. Reaching alignment is also a moment that is very interesting. So every time we get into big transformations, I love transformation, I love change management. These are the moments where I found also a lot of happiness, a lot of joy, because we are together as a team. We have one voice, and we are talking to the organization about the future and the growth usually of the business. These are things that are very important to me.
There's so many things that you said I want to ask follow-up questions on. First is, I really can feel the passion that you have in this field of HR. For any listeners who may be considering a switch to HR, what do you have to say to encourage them?
I would say first and foremost, please join us because we are a great community. I think this community is a very welcoming community. I have so many of my professional colleagues who became very close friends. One of them, as you know, is Vanessa Iloste. She's one of my very best friends, and I'm so lucky to have her in my life. And it's a very welcoming community, and it's a community where, because we are very focused on learning, we encourage people to learn. So I think every community is a bit like that. But for us, learning is one of our strengths, is one of our capabilities. So if you come to someone and you say, I don't know about this topic, can you please enlighten me? Can you please share with me your tips, your ideas? People will be most of the time super supportive. Like I'm thinking of one of my very good friends from Singapore. His name is Ronnie Tan. I approached him at a time when I was really having a lot of questions about transformation in tech. We have a big team of engineers in our company. And I just knocked on the door and I sent him a message, and he invited me in Punggol to have a coffee with him. I still remember every time I go in Punggol, I think of Ronnie. And I'm like, oh, this is the place he took me for coffee, because it feels moving for me that someone took off his very precious time. He's a very busy man to actually teach me about the tech, HR in tech, what is the difference, how it works. It was a couple of years ago, and I still think of him very often. So I would say, you know what, just push the door and try to find where you can bring your expertise. Most of the time, you have knowledge that you can actually transfer. It can be, for instance, if you know a product, you can become a product training specialist. Or if you're very good at teaching other, you can become a person who is very good at coaching, or very good at being on the field as a field coach. You can be, if you know how to spot talent, you can be a very good talent acquisition. There are many, many ways to join actually the human resources community. And I think that is just a question of asking how. And I'm sure the person who is hearing you is going to say, let me think about something. A couple of years or months later, you are going to be invited to join the HR department.
You mentioned one of your best friends, right? It's Vanessa Cho from SC Engineering, and we're very lucky to have had her as a podcast guest just recently as well. And I also know that the both of you actually have a podcast yourselves called Career Transitions. Already, what, 4 seasons
Yeah,
already
we are
launched?
starting the 5th season.
Starting the 5th season. Your podcast is really focusing on stories of people who are switching in their careers, right?
Yes.
So based on all the stories you have heard, what are some of the traits that you have picked out that can actually help people transition careers successfully?
So this is a very good question. One of the things we have discovered with Vanessa Tio is the fact that there is very little research on the topic. So when we are doing our interviews, we feel a little bit like researchers. We take our hats as researchers and we reflect, and we take time together outside of the episodes to really think very deeply about what we see, what we observe, and the patterns we see. One of the only researchers we know on the topic is Amania Ibarra, who is very famous, and she has worked on the concept of working identities. And I don't know her personally, but her book is very famous. It's called Working Identity. And what he says, which is very inspiring in your case, Dorothy, is the fact that in all of us, we have many working identities. And we are trained by society, formatted by society to think that we belong only to one working identity. So when you are actually educated, and it doesn't matter which country you're in, you end up thinking, oh, I'm going to become a doctor, or I'm going to become a nurse, or I'm going to become a shop owner. It doesn't matter what you are thinking about, but you believe that this is actually going to happen for the rest of your life after you graduate or whatever school you are in. The truth of the matter is, the more it goes, the more the world is changing, the more we are going to have to reinvent ourselves many times. So some of our guests, they have already reinvented themselves 3 or 4 times, and they have discovered another second, third, or fourth working identity in themselves. And what she says, which is really powerful, I found, is you need to do a couple of very small experiments to be able to realize that you have this working identity. Like, for instance, I enjoy teaching. Vanessa Iloste is teaching a lot in university, her much more than me. I do a little bit of help from time to time when she's teaching. And when Vanessa Tio is experimenting, or when I'm helping her to be a professor, I'm also trying, how I feel about this experiment. And I can discover whether I might have or she might have another working identity as a professor or as a teacher for the future. So this is something that is really happening as we speak. We have a lot of concepts around us, around gig economy, around having multiple jobs. Some people are talking about portfolio careers. And in this idea, even if you talk, and I say it with a lot of respect because I have tremendous respect for them, even if you speak to a Grab driver or a Gojek driver, they will tell you that they have discovered something different about themselves when they start driving and when they start taking care of their customers. And they have realized that maybe they have an affinity for hospitality or doing some community service. So it's very interesting. Is this job, which is originally a way for them to make a little bit more money? Some of them are full time, but most of them are part time. It's actually an experiment for them to test a new working identity. Some of them they resent it, and it's okay. When once they have finished, they can move on. But some of them they actually enjoy doing it, and it can open the doors to maybe hospitality, tourism, F&B, something very different compared to maybe the original job that they used to have. So these are the type of research we have found. We have found also a lot of things around learning agility. So we have a very good friend. Her name is Wendy Tan. She's one of the best professors we have in Singapore today, and she has written many books, and one of them is about learning agility. And Wendy is really realizing through her research that you need to have meta consciousness when you are doing your learning. So meta consciousness is the ability to actually look at yourself above yourself. So it's a little bit difficult at the beginning. I can tell you it took me a while to get around this concept. It's almost like having a concept of watching yourself and detaching yourself from yourself to be able to reflect on yourself. And the more you are going to reflect on your learning and to think of you as a learner, indirectly of yourself, the more you can adjust your learning methodology and you can improve your own learning. For instance, I started with this example with Ronnie, my good friend Ronnie Tan, because I'm not an engineer. I wanted to talk to an HR head, a CHRO in the tech, to be able to understand what actually makes a difference between a good HR professional in tech versus an HR professional from other industries. And my way of learning is to talk to people. This is the way I like to do things. So I like to learn from others. I like to listen to their testimonies. I like to really reflect on what they say. So when Ronnie actually accepted to have this coffee with me, he was offering me such a great learning opportunity, which was exactly in line with my needs. And it was for me, but other people are different, better than watching a film or a video or learning from a book, because I have this affinity when it comes to my learning. So this is something also we are learning from the Career Transition podcast, is how do people learn to actually adapt themselves through another organization? The more intentionality they will have, the stronger they will be. So this is something very powerful that we can all apply every day. So how much intentional are you about your learning? Because every quarter, most of us, we need to discover a new field or a new area. I'm learning a lot of things right now that I didn't know before because unfortunately China's economy is not doing very well. So we need to learn how to manage the business in times of difficulties. I'm learning how to encourage people and lead people through tough times, through uncertainty, and compared to how to lead people through growth. I need to find a way to have this meta consciousness and to look at myself doing these sessions of and these facilitations and almost like giving myself feedback after the session to actually tell myself what I've done well and what I could do better.
There's so much that you said that I love. That meta consciousness that you talked about is very much almost, it's like self awareness, right? Having
Yes.
that self awareness and also the courage to experiment and try different things. And then also on the working identities, I definitely need to read that book. That sounds like a very interesting book. But also on the working identities, it really reminds me that how all of us are actually a work in progress.
Yes.
We are always self discovering, we're
Yes.
always becoming a better version
Yes.
of ourselves.
Yes.
And this leads me to my next question, which kind of touches on something that you have said before, where throughout your career, you're also blessed with really good bosses. So, how has some of them, and you can give us some examples, shaped your own leadership philosophy?
So there is one today who is very dear to my heart. She's my current boss. She is a lady that is larger than life, and she is always a very animated, energetic, and sometimes very loud personality. And what I've learned from her is the concept of being unapologetically yourself, which is very fundamental to being yourself, embracing who you are. I finished my studies in Japan and I got very much influenced by the Japanese education. So, the end of my education for almost 5 years, I was taught to be the most humble possible and always respectful, of course, which I always believed in, respectful of others, but always to be mindful that I should not be the one sticking out too much because in a Japanese society, it's not something that people are encouraging you to have. The collective consensus is something very important. So I've been practicing what I've learned in Japan for many years, and that was being people oriented, focusing a lot on the consensus, trying to create the consensus. When I'm not the person who is passive, I'm very proactive, but how to make people around the table, facilitate conversation, make sure that people are comfortable is a decision we make. And then I realized that there is always a tension between practicing this harmony and having people expressing themselves with radical ideas. And sometimes you are wondering what is the best direction? What is the right direction around? Is the harmony and the consensus always good? Or do you need to also give space for a very radical, innovative idea that maybe people do not understand yet, but they are going to bring to the organization, to the business, a lot of added value? Is the tough and the soft side of HR? Are you supposed to be a tough HR or a soft HR person? And people oriented, task oriented, all these debates. So when she started telling me about that she wanted to be unapologetic herself, it was a big shock at the beginning. I was like, wow, she's so brave. I never thought of being unapologetic myself. Most of the time I apologize. It's the other way around. I say, I'm so sorry. I'm so tall. I'm so big. I'm so foreign. I'm not the person who is really feeling comfortable at the beginning to be that confident in myself because I feel like sometimes it can be difficult for, especially in our region, because people might feel like, oh, you're not giving them space and you're not including them. But then I realized there are times where if you have really done a good job in terms of consulting people, and you have been a good leader in terms of getting the perspective of, and she's a very inclusive person herself. She's really inclusive. And there is a moment you need to make a decision. And this is the time when you need to be unapologetic yourself. And I've learned a lot from that because it requires you to show up and it requires courage. It requires a little bit of pushing yourself. My comfort zone is more on the harmony side. So I need to really encourage myself and say, hey, Vanessa, today you are going to be like your leader, a little bit more effective, a little bit more assertive. And I am very grateful to her because I've learned a lot from her. And I think it will stay with me for a long time.
So, speaking about leadership, I think a lot of what we do in HR is to align business goals and the direction that leaders set with how to mobilize the human resource that we have? What are some of the strategies you have, for example, to really ensure that there's full alignment continuous?
I think one of the things I've learned is first and foremost, start with the business. I was working on a very big, important omnichannel transformation related to e-commerce, related to tech, related to performance marketing. At the beginning, because I didn't know that much about what my colleagues were doing, I would have looked at things in a manner that was too simplistic. And the truth of the matter is that if you want to talk about a transformation to a team when you don't have a lot of knowledge about what they do intimately, they will not give you a lot of credibility. And that's normal. Because I believe today, if I tell you what to do with Engage Rocket, you will look at me and say, what do you know about being an entrepreneur? And I say, you have never done that in your life. So don't judge me. And you would be right to say so. And I would be wrong to give you any form of advice. So the first thing you need to do is to make sure that the knowledge you have is strong enough to have the level of credibility that is going to be strong enough to be able to get people together around the table and to facilitate conversation. So it's not the level of learning or the level of knowledge that requires you to make decision, but it's the level of learning or knowledge that is going to encourage people to open up to their difficulties. Because if I don't know anything about your business or anything about e-commerce, people are not even going to raise their hand to tell me I'm making a big mistake on that direction. And then to really think about, okay, now that she knows, now that I feel she knows, I can actually start sharing about some of the pain points. So the business gives you the door that will be open for you to be able to ask question. And then when you start asking question, you will get into the pain points in a transformation, for instance. It's an example. And then from the pain points, you can move together with the team into co-creation of solutions. So these are the things that I've learned. What do I need to have at the beginning that is the minimum level of understanding that is going to give me that form of credibility that is going to help me unlock and help facilitate the unlocking of some conversation?
But even to your point, you yourself have to go and learn, right? And it touches on exactly what you just brought up, learning agility. You've always worked in companies that is extremely diverse. How do you build this culture of continuous learning? Especially it's not only diverse, but dispersed geographically as well. Tell us more about that.
I think that every time you see someone making an effort to share their knowledge, you really need to celebrate that person. And it's at any level, like in the store, I see, because we have so many of our BAs, beauty consultant, beauty advisor, they play the role of the OG or the senior for a newcomer. And they put all their heart and their soul into it. I can see them when I visit. I love visiting the store. I do that on a regular basis. And I can see in the back of the store, there are two ladies chit-chatting while we're having the conversation with the leaders. And I can see that one is showing the other one a technique or a product or range. So catch them in the act. So you can go to these ladies and you can say, oh, are you actually helping your colleague today? Because it looks like you're teaching her something. And they will say, oh, yeah, actually, Jasmine just came in 2 days ago. So she doesn't know so much about lipstick. I was just telling her about lipstick. And then you can bring attention to that and you can say, wow, this is really good. I want to say thank you to you for bringing Jasmine to Sephora or to the organization and really catching them in the act. So lunch and learn, you need to celebrate. Opportunities for coaching, you need to celebrate. Whatever you see every day, like sometimes I take pictures. Like the other day, I was taking picture of one of my colleagues. She was in front of the store and she was helping the other ones to change the window. And she had put on the floor some very simple pictures of things that she needed into a certain order. And I took picture of them and I said, can I take pictures of you? Because you look so happy together, working together. And one was teaching the other. This is something that you can do at your level. Any leader can do that. And then creating opportunity, like we have Global Learning Week. This is a fantastic opportunity for 1 week. Every day we have 2 or 3 different opportunity for you to learn. And you can enroll yourself into activities. You can listen to a podcast. I mean, many, many things in group usually. So Global Learning Week is another way. Creating new program of training is another way. There are many ways, but every single time people that are actually having this courage, because it takes a lot of vulnerability to share what you know, and you want to celebrate them, you want to encourage them.
Basically, celebrate desired behaviors
Yes.
and then also broadcasting it to show this is an example of what desired behavior is. And speaking about culture, something that I know about you, and I think we also connected on it, is that you're a very big advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, right?
Yes.
So tell us more about how you built that within an organizational culture.
So I'm very lucky today because I work for an organization that has almost D&I embedded inside the culture. So it's the second time I work for Sephora. I was actually having a project in 2004 to do the setup of Sephora in China. And I worked for Sephora for 18 months. And then I rejoined in 2017. And it was amazing in 2004 because there was already this concept of diversity, equity, and inclusion at the heart of the culture, when nobody talked about. Maybe it was already available in the US or in Canada, but I was not aware of that particular concept. Sorry, maybe I was a bit late, but I could feel actually this idea of bringing people inside the organization with respect, trying to get as many different points of view as possible. One of the things that really touched me is I hired 3 store managers for the first 3 stores in China that were sent to San Francisco for 3 full months each. And it was because we wanted them to really learn the culture of Sephora. And I still remember, because it was 2004, having this very HR question, which is, we are going to spend for 3 months the equivalent of 1 year of their salary. Now is different, but at that time there was such a big difference of salaries. And I was thinking, what do we do if they don't like it? And I remember my colleagues from Sephora, the leader, said, it doesn't matter. We are going to invest in these people. We are going to bring them the proper environment for them to experience the culture, so that when they come back to Shanghai and Beijing, they can create the same culture in their own stores. I was really touched by that. It was incredible. These store managers, they were really valued, and they need to be valued, and they were really welcome. And they did so many things to make sure that when they go to San Francisco, they will be happy. They told me, they say, do you know the brand of rice cooker we need to buy? And they sent me an email about the rice cooker brand. And I was like, oh, oh, I didn't even know in the US you had a rice cooker brand. I'm sorry, but I thought rice cooker in 2004, they were in Asia, maybe not in the US. I had not thought about the rice cooker, but my colleagues in the US thought that these 3 Chinese colleagues will come to San Francisco and they will meet in their place together to have some food that is comfortable for them. So they had thought about buying a rice cooker for the apartment we rented for them. And that, for me, it was very touching. It was this kind of detail that tells me that people are really putting yourself in their shoes and welcoming them and embracing them and just accepting them with their culture and their identity. So, yeah. And when I came back in 2017, this concept was exactly the same. So it's not very hard because it's already very strongly embedded into the culture, I think, in the first place. We need to make sure that we cultivate it. So we need to make sure that we remind ourselves that we are so lucky, and I try my best to celebrate it on a regular basis. So the same way we celebrate the learning, when we see D&I opportunities, we celebrate together as well.
If I pull our lens forward and look into the future, and we ask all of our podcast guests the same question, what would you say the ideal workplace of the future will look like?
Yeah, I think it would be very different from now. It's going to be so different. I think that we'll be surprised when we have our own grandchildren, the 2 of us, and they will come to visit us and they will share the stories from the workplace. I did a piece of work which was absolutely extraordinary with 2 futurist consultants. And I did that, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. And it was one of the best projects I've ever done with my team. And we were trying to project ourselves in 2030. So now it's not that far away. It's 5 years, but at that time it was 10 years, I mean, forward. And we found out so many trends that we were not ready for. So I think they were already, and it was before or just at the time of COVID, there were a lot of trends related to, of course, the flexi that we are talking today. But the most important one was actually, what is the relationship you have with your employer? What kind of relationship you are going to build with your employer? And do you want this relationship to be transactional, or do you want this relationship to be experiential? And that is very fundamental to everything we are going to do to build the workplace of the future. I think that if we behave in a way that is transactional, we are going to generate, is a little bit like the same like parent to parent type of parent to child analogy. We are going to create employees who are going to treat us as employer transactionally. So the more you treat me as a robot, the more you treat me for my very limited skills in a very limited job description that is not allowing me to see the end-to-end process, the more I'm going to give you the minimum requirement because I'm not feeling valued. I'm not feeling respected. I don't see the big picture. You are treating me like a robot. And the ones who are going to have great workplace are going to create experiential relationship. So experiential relationship means you are thinking at least in the midterm. You are not short-term minded. You are already thinking maybe 3, 4, 5 years, 6 years, because maybe the young generation would like to experiment a lot of things. That's okay. But you want at least to have the perspective of, if I hire you, I'm going to give you an opportunity to stay with us. You like it, you don't like it, it's up to you. But at least for 5, 6 years, so that I can help you to grow, to develop yourself, to get closer to your dreams. And I'm going to invest into this relationship. I want this relationship to be meaningful. I want this connection to be really, really something strong. Like today, I'm sure in your own organization, you are a role model for all these people who work for you at Engage Rocket. They are looking at you and they say, oh, one day I want to be like her. I want to be an inspiring lady and I want to be this smart lady like her. This is my dream. And because they feel the connection with you and they feel the inspiration from you, maybe some people call them, say, hey, come and work for me, blah, blah, blah. But no, because I really want to continue my journey with Dorothy. She's so exciting. She has having 10 ideas a minute. So she is the person I want to follow. So the more connection you create with them, the more you engage them. You were talking about having town hall, reflection, conversation, the more you are going to create this connection that is really, really meaningful for them. And that is going to stay with them even after they have left your organization. They are going to remember, oh, when I was at Engage Rocket, I was thinking of this, or I was thinking of that. I think this concept of employer and employee relationship, the more we are going to think about it and the more we are going to make that relationship fair. We need a fair relationship. I don't want to be used. I don't want to be abused. I don't want to use or abuse you. I want both of us to feel like this contract is honored on both sides. If we write a contract tomorrow, I want you to feel comfortable with this contract. I want to feel comfortable with my side of the contract. And how contractually we create a win-win opportunity. This is really what I think is going to be at the heart, more than is it 3 days a week that people are going to work, or are they going to work from the beach? Or I think it's more like this fundamental relationship that we need to think about very deeply in order for us to have the best workplace of the future.
My mind is blown. At the start of this podcast, I asked you, what are the highlights of your career journey? What you have just described in the last few minutes was the sole reason why I stay so passionate about this field of HR, especially because we live in a world now that's increasingly integrated. Engage Rocket, we are all about elevating the employee experience. And I always say this to everyone that joins Engage Rocket. You have to think about it, that we are not only just impacting employees' life. They take their experiences at work home. So we are also actually impacting their families. We're impacting a lot more people than we can see. And what we are doing here is also to not just help organization, oh, I just want to get a number and then check the box, or we look at every employee as just a number on a sheet, right? It's really about how do we use data to fully understand the different segments within our organization to cater not just a one-size-fits-all solution, but to cater solutions, initiatives, programs, whatever it is that tailors to also the life stage or whatever that the employee is going through, right? Someone that's returning from maternity may require a very different thing from someone that just graduated or someone who is a baby boomer generation, especially also now that we're in a multi-generational workforce. So I could go on and on, but a lot of what you said touched my heart. So thank you for that. I want to move on to rapid fire questions. So it's going to be a little bit more fun. And I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, starting with 23 years in LVMH. Can I ask which one is your favorite brand?
Okay, so I'm not lying. My favorite brand is Sephora. So I worked for Sephora twice and I came back to Sephora for a reason. So I love Sephora. I love the environment. I'm inspired every day by the people around me and the people from the store. And this is for me the place that I love the most.
And in Sephora itself, what is your favorite brand?
So I am really also honest because I use it a lot. I love our love brand, which is Sephora Collection. So Sephora Collection has a very interesting history, and it comes from a background of really making beauty available to everyone. And I think the spirit is still there today. So, we can see in the markets where we have people who might not have a lot of purchasing power, they really enjoy using Sephora Collection. And this is usually their entry point. And I want to embrace that and I want to celebrate that because there is nothing wrong with using a brand that makes you happy. So Sephora Collection is really my favorite brand. And today on my face, most probably 6 or 7 different pieces of Sephora Collection.
Okay, so I don't want to make this sound like an advertisement, but I'm also still very curious. Which product in the Sephora collection would you recommend?
The serum is actually incredible. I'm reaching the age where serum is very important. The concealer is one of the best. And if you go into our application, into Sephora application on the app, you will find actually a tool that allows you, no matter which foundation you use, to find the best concealer from Sephora collection. So you actually look at your foundation, you look at the bottle, whatever you use, you put the details of that bottle into the program and they will give you, and I can tell you the other day I had forgotten. So I redid the exercise and I ordered it online and I received like the perfect concealer and I'm so happy. I had been advised by one of my colleagues about the number, but I had forgotten it. And yeah, it works very well.
And Vanessa, what would you say is your superpower?
My superpower, I think I'm very curious. I am the person, to a certain extent, a little bit too curious. So, sometimes I will send you messages about like my recent discovery because there is an incredible exhibition in Singapore in the Peranakan Museum around batik from a Peranakan family from Indonesia, a 3 generation of women who have for 150 years done batik in Indonesia. And I decided that I wanted to learn about the batik in Indonesia. So I have read in the last 2 weeks something like 3 books about batik in Indonesia. So some people say it's a little bit too much. You don't need to read these 3 books, but it gives me a lot of joy because when I do that, I open my mind to the beauty of this word, to the richness of all these people and what they do. And I think it makes me fundamentally happy. So I would say curiosity is. So if I ask you a lot of questions in a meeting or an interview, in a cocktail, do not feel scared and do not feel overwhelmed by me. It's because I care and it's because I want to get to know you really in depth and I want to get to know the beautiful human being you are.
And in this world where learning agility is so important, I must say, Vanessa, you set a great example as someone leading HR for all employees to look up to. I truly enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you very much for taking your time and speaking with me, Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Dorothy. I have all the best with the podcast.
To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. If you found the conversation valuable, do like and subscribe to our podcasts on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any of your favorite podcast app. You can also learn more about the show and subscribe to our community at engagerocket.co/HR impact. I'll see you in the next episode.